Cultural and Tourism Minister Rosanna Law says officials are working with police to combat ticket scalping for the Kai Tak Sports Park opening next month. The Kai Tak Sports Park stages its first National Games test events. And the rumored changes on the $2 transport subsidy scheme for the elderly has sparked mixed reactions from lawmakers. Good evening. You are watching Cable News. I'm Evelyn Bai. The government expressed confidence that the long-awaited opening ceremony of Kai Tak Sports Park next Saturday will proceed in an orderly manner and warned the public against purchasing scalped tickets for the event. Jeremy Zhu reports.
試咗2次3個啟德體育園嘅場館6萬。
Talking on a radio program, Secretary for Culture, Sports and Tourism Rosanna Law declared the successful completion of crowd management drills at the venue. We conducted 2 full-capacity tests across all 3 venues, simulating 63,000 attendees, with excellent results, Law said. Law highlighted that 80% of participants were able to reach the MTR stations and board the first train after the event, underscoring confidence in the park's crowd control measures for the official opening. Meanwhile, the 8,500 public tickets for the opening show were sold out yesterday within half an hour, prompting warnings against ticket scalping. The tourism chief said authorities have pledged to work with police to tackle the issue and urged residents to stay vigilant. While acknowledging that a mandatory real-name ticketing system for future events is technically feasible, Law emphasized that society and industry should be on common ground on this issue, particularly for events involving sponsorships, where organizers will allocate a portion of tickets to secure sponsorships. If a real name system was adopted, it may impact organizers' confidence and willingness to run big events. Looking ahead, the tourism minister revealed that March will see multiple mega events at the sports park and announced that future M-Mark funding allocations will be more targeted, with events generating lower economic returns potentially receiving more promotional support instead of cash funding. Jeremy Zhu, Cable News.
Meanwhile, the Kai Tak Sports Park hosted its first test event for the National Games, a 2-day men's handball tournament at the arena featuring teams from Hong Kong, Macau and mainland. Jeremy Zhu again has the story.
This marked the SAR team's first home game and the arena's inaugural handball competition, with players giving their all and fans cheering enthusiastically. Team Hong Kong faced off against teams from Macau, Guangdong and Jiangsu. SAR player Freddie Zhe praised the venue, saying he was stunned by its beauty and felt a sense of excitement playing in his home city. There are also players offering constructive feedback. Wang Chen from Jiangsu province noted issues with cleanliness, citing dust and slippery floors. Some Guangdong player also suggested shuttle bus services as the distance between the hotel and the venue was too far to walk. The SAR will host 8 National Games events in November, including fencing, which will also be held at the Kai Tak Arena. A fencing test event is scheduled for late May. Jeremy Zhu, Cable News.
Separately, Shenzhen Bay Port will be closed from 2 a.m. to 11 a.m. tomorrow for the Shenzhen-Hong Kong Marathon, a test event for this year's National Games. Xu Yun has more details.
The 42-kilometer women's race will start at 7 a.m., followed by the men's race half an hour later. Both the start and finish lines will be located at the Shenzhen Bay Sports Center. The runners will enter Hong Kong through the Shenzhen Bay Port, cross the Shenzhen Bay Bridge and the Kongshan Western Highway Viaduct, before turning back and returning to Shenzhen via the same route. Shenzhen Bay Port will suspend its clearance services from 2 a.m. to 11 a.m. on Sunday. The closure will also affect the Shenzhen Bay Bridge, Kongshan Western Highway and Hachun Interchange. Cross-boundary coach services, franchised buses, minibuses and taxis using the port will also be suspended. Travelers are advised to plan their journeys in advance and utilize alternative control points. Cheryl Yun, Cable News.
Sources hinting at an adjustment to the city's $2 transport subsidy scheme have sparked mixed reactions. A lawmaker criticized the tweak as unfair, stating that it offers minimal savings for the government while causing trouble for the elderly. Another lawmaker lauded it as the most suitable strategy given Hong Kong's current financial situation. Xiu Rin reports.
According to sources, the government plans to introduce a monthly journey cap of 240 rides under the $2 transport subsidy scheme. Additionally, for rides costing $10 or more, eligible users will be required to pay 20% of the original fare. Social welfare lawmaker Tik Chi Yun argued that the adjustment would have minimal impact on reducing government expenses, as few elderly people would take up to 8 trips per day. Tik highlighted the potential unfairness to senior residents living in remote areas who face increased costs for long-distance journeys to care for their grandchildren. He also noted that the change would create difficulties for the elderly in managing their expenses. Conversely, Roundtable lawmaker Michael Tian viewed the adjustment as a strategic solution to address the fiscal deficit, adding that providing an 80% discount on trips over $10 would be a better approach than a direct increase in the flat $2 fare.
The benefit of that is that it sets a mechanism so that it automatically adjusts itself for the next 100, 200 years, rather than arguing about when they have to change that again, because there's no administration would have the courage to touch this magic number of $2. All right, so to change it into a percentage would be the best thing.
He added that this alteration could deter elderly from exploiting cross-harbor buses by alighting after just a few stops. Cheryl Yun, Cable News.
The Macau government will relaunch a citywide consumption scheme that will run for 10 weeks, starting March 24th to boost local economy. Under the scheme, Macau residents can get 3 electronic price draws by spending at least 50 patakas through verified e-wallets, with the chance to win up to 200 patakas. The spending incentives can be used at more than 20,000 physical shops, excluding shops in leisure and resorts. Meanwhile, to assist elderly residents who may not be familiar with mobile payment systems, those holding a senior citizen card will receive an additional 300 patakas rewards. The Macau government launched a similar campaign last September, attracting over 22,000 businesses and driving over 1.1 billion patakas of expenditure across Macau. Yao Yuanhua, director of the Economic and Technological Development Bureau, pointing out that this community spending reward program is a short-term and temporary measure, and discussions with 8 designated organizations have taken place to ensure stability within the system, avoiding significant changes during this short-term initiative. U.S. President Donald Trump signed a memorandum to curb Chinese investments in U.S. strategic areas, the White House said. Titled America First Investment Policy, the memorandum noted that China is exploiting United States capital to develop and modernize its military, intelligence, and other security apparatuses, posing a threat to U.S. national security. Under the directive, the Committee on Foreign Investments in the United States would tighten China-affiliated investments in technology, critical infrastructure, healthcare, agriculture, energy, raw materials, or other strategic sectors. Sources said the Trump administration will also consider new policies to block mainland companies from buying up critical American businesses and assets, as well as limiting American outbound investments in China's military-civil fusion strategy, such as semiconductors. U.S. President Donald Trump has criticized Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky for having no cards to play in negotiations while still acting tough, adding that the two countries are close to agreeing a minerals deal. Xiu Rin reports.
Amid escalating U.S.-Ukraine tensions, U.S. President Donald Trump renewed criticism against his Ukrainian counterpart, while refraining from negative remarks about Russian President Vladimir Putin.
I've had very good talks with Putin, and I've had not such good talks with Ukraine. They don't have any cards, but they play it tough. But we're not going to let this continue. This war is terrible. It would have never happened if I were president. But it did happen, so I got stuck with it, and the whole world is stuck with it. I think that President Putin and President Zelensky are going to have to get together because, you know what, we want to stop killing millions of people.
Separately, in an interview with Fox News, Trump has reversed course and said Russia did invade Ukraine on Putin's command, contradicting his earlier claim that Ukraine should never have started the war. Meanwhile, Trump said they are close to signing a big deal with Ukraine, which involves Ukraine supplying rare earth minerals in exchange for U.S. aid. He stressed that the U.S. have spent $300 billion on the war, 3 times more than Europe, emphasizing the necessity for returns. Zelensky also confirmed that officials from both countries are working on a draft agreement between the two governments, expressing hope for just results. Cheryl Yun, Cable News.
Hamas has released 6 Israeli hostages in exchange for 602 Palestinian prisoners, marking the final swap under the first phase of the ceasefire agreement. Jeremy Zhu reports.
Among the free hostages are Tal Shaham and Avera Mengistu, who hold Austrian and Ethiopian citizenship respectively. Both were paraded by armed militants in Rafah, Gaza, and given certificates before being handed over to the International Red Cross and returned to Israel for medical checks and family reunions. The other 3 captives, Elia Cohen, Omer Wenkert, Omer Shemtov, were transferred in the Nuseirat refugee camp in central Gaza. Another hostage, Hisham al-Sayed, was handed over at a 3rd site in Gaza City. The 6 men aged 22 to 39 are the last group of hostages released under the initial truce. Mengistu and al-Sayed, both suffering from mental illnesses, had entered Gaza separately around a decade ago and were held captive for over 3,600 days. The remaining 4 are abducted during the 7th October Hamas attack in 2023. In a separate development, Israel confirmed today that Hamas returned the actual body of Shiri Bibas, a female hostage believed to have been killed alongside her 2 sons while in captivity. Hamas mistakenly sent back a raw body of an unidentified woman earlier on Thursday. The first phase of the ceasefire agreement is set to expire on the 2nd of next month. So far, both Israel and Hamas have yet to reach an agreement on the next phase of the ceasefire negotiations. Jeremy Zhu, Cable News.
In a surprising or perhaps not so surprising development, U.S. President Donald Trump fired General C.Q. Braun as the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and nominated retired Air Force Lieutenant General Dan Rosenking to replace Braun. Trump announced the news on his Truth Social platform without stating the reason. The firing came as a surprise as it happened on a Friday night. But it was also not that surprising since Trump has vowed to oust military officers who have supported diversity, equity, and inclusion policies, of which Braun is a backer. Braun's potential successor may also be unexpected because presidents typically select someone for the role who is a service chief or combat commander. 2 other top officers were also sacked along with Braun, as announced by new Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. Braun, the 2nd black general to serve as the military's top officer, began what was supposed to be a 4-year term in October 2023. Hegseth has previously criticized Braun, saying that he landed the job simply because of his skin color and urged to fire him. Fans of local athletes, here is your chance to show your support as the Hong Kong Sports Stars Award voting is now open online. At the star-studded promotional event, nominated athletes took the stage to share their outstanding achievements in the past year. The lineup included familiar faces like shuttler Jordan Tang, gymnast Shek Wai-hong, Paris Paralympics bocher gold medalist John Leung, and the bocher duo Ho Yun-kei and Tae Tak-wa. A total of 160 nominations from 53 national sports associations are up for public voting starting today until March 9th. The 4 categories include men, women, team-only sports, and sports combination. Mark your calendars now for the awards presentation ceremony on April 25th. On to the weather now. Mainly cloudy with 1 or 2 rain patches tonight and tomorrow morning. Cool in the morning and at night. Temperatures will range from 15 to 18 degrees in the urban areas and a couple of degrees lower in the new territories in the morning. That's our news tonight. I'm Evelyn Bai. Thanks for watching and good night.